I think that you have me thinking also about the whole critical race theory aspect of things, and the fact that the Trump administration came out against that kind of educational approach and material, with their basis being that it tears the country apart, that it doesn't encourage a sense of pride in America, that it discourages there being any sense of American history as having anything to be proud of. And all of that has Make America Great Again, right-wing Republican zealot ring to it. That means that I think a lot of people feel that to be against this new current in education means that you are a right-wing zealot. But that business of tarring by association gets very sloppy. And the truth is that even if the Trump administration's motives for coming out against CRT, critical race theory, in that way, were what many of us would regard as not ours and perhaps even impure, that doesn't mean that there isn't something really alarming going on in a lot of educational entities these days in terms of what they think of as education to be. And a lot of this is affecting children. And so you and I, for example, are privy privately to what went on at the Dalton School here in New York City, where I am, where apparently the entire curriculum has been turned upside down into these endless indoctrination sessions about the nature of racial oppression in the United States, including role-playing games and separation of people by race, and all of this being done by people who think of themselves on the side of the angels. This is a school that's been running for 100 years as one of the most innovative and effective educational institutions on earth. And because of the fear that these CRT types inspire in other people, the idea that if you don't agree with them, you're going to be called a racist in public. Goodness gracious, that scares people. The whole school has possibly been ruined. Bryn Mawr was essentially taken over by students demanding that kind of ideology as what was taught in all classrooms for weeks, to the point that some people have withdrawn their students from the school. The president, or whatever the head of Bryn Mawr is called, and she should be called out, Kim Cassidy, actually gave in to these students and apologized for initially criticizing them for example, making other students, frankly, most of the student body, scared to their socks for not agreeing to this idea that the education in the school needed to be completely hijacked. This sort of thing is happening in various places, and in each case, CRT fans could say, well, that's extreme, but the problem is this has become a meme nationwide, and we only need think about the Princeton letter that we've talked about, which basically implies that Princeton ought to be run by a star chamber of people deciding what's racist and what isn't. This whole dialogue is getting a little frightening. I write about it actually in my latest Atlantic piece, and I have to say my latest Substack piece. This stuff is scary, and I would bring it up even if there wasn't my new Substack account. This way of looking at things really is becoming overly influential, given, and the reason I'm saying it's overly influential is because it doesn't teach people how to think constructively, except about one very narrow thing. And it's not based on any coherent philosophy of education. It's a religion. This is religion being preached as some sort of higher truth by people, most of whom I doubt consider themselves very religious. So, okay, we're not going to have the White House prescribing against critical race theory in education. But on the other hand, we do need to have a conversation, if there's going to be a racial reckoning under the Biden administration, as to what that reckoning is going to be. And if the reckoning is going to be that any Black person who decides to exert the performance art of saying that their institution is racist will have 90% of what they demand given to them because everybody is peeing their pants, being afraid that somebody's going to call them a bigot on Twitter, this country is in serious trouble. And anybody who wants to tell me that I shouldn't say that until there's no such thing as a right-wing militia zealot who might overtake the Capitol, anybody who says that we can't talk about that until we do something about the idiots on the right, well, you know what? Frankly, I don't believe you. I think that really the people who say that just don't want to hear what they know is a truth because they're afraid that somebody's going to call them racist on Twitter if they don't bow down. We've got to sit these people back down. And notice, I'm not saying chase them out of the room, but the hyper wokesters need to go back to the way it was 20 years ago when they were one voice at the table. And it does not make anybody a right-wing zealot to feel that what's happening at places like Dalton is deeply, deeply wrong. You can be somebody who's just a good old-fashioned liberal.
John, that was a rant. That was a rant in the spirit of Glenn.
I'm disgusted. I am utterly, that was kind of
There's
like you,
there
but
was
I am
so
utterly
much in there.
disgusted.
So